Greenhouse gases cause global warming. We are pumping huge amounts of CO2 into the environment. We should stop emitting CO2.
Very little of the atmosphere is CO2. Only 2% of the atmosphere is made up of greenhouse gases such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Only 3.6% of the 2% is CO2. And only 3.4% of that CO2 is attributed to human activity. That is only 0.2% of the atmosphere.
But Americans should do what we can to reduce the amount of CO2 we put into the atmosphere.
The numbers I gave you are for everybody on the planet. About 22% of the worldwide human-caused CO2 is caused by Americans. This is about 0.7% of all CO2.
But Americans should do things like sign on to the Kyoto Protocol and cap and trade so that we can at least reduce our share of CO2 output.
It is generally thought that a 15% reduction in CO2 would occur as a result of the cap and trade and other policies sought by Democrats and the Obama administration. Therefore, the part of the atmosphere that can be affected by cap and trade is 0.008%. This means the cap and trade reductions would only reduce human-caused CO2 emissions by 1%. This seems like a lot of new energy economy, money spent on windmills and solar panels for very little return.
We have to start somewhere.
I don't think you are appreciating the cost-benefit problem. Imagine that a keg of beer represents the entire atmosphere. Using the greenhouse gas numbers, about 40 ounces represents all the greenhouse gases. About 1½ ounces, or 1 shot, is all of the CO2 in the atmosphere. Less than 1/3 of a teaspoon is contributed by humans. 22% of that 1/3 teaspoon is contributed by Americans. And of that 1/5, of 1/3, of 1 teaspoon, a little less than a drip from an eyedropper can be reduced by the proposed cap and trade policies. Is the keg of beer so fragile that 1 drip would lead to catastrophe?
The atmosphere is not a keg of beer. And if you put poison in my beer, it would be harmful.
In our example, we already have an entire shot of what you are calling poison in our keg. CO2 is not a poison, it is needed for life on Earth.
But the EPA has called carbon dioxide a pollutant.
Nothing would grow on this planet without carbon dioxide. Since the EPA is calling that life-giving gas a pollutant, will water be next? Especially since water vapor is a greenhouse gas too.
That is dumb. They would never do that.
Is the Earth so fragile that a 0.1% reduction in CO2 will stop catastrophe?
We could reach a tipping point.
The sun is a much bigger contributor to global warming and larger swings have occurred in the past before humans were around. Why didn't the Earth hit the tipping point then?
I don't know. But Al Gore said that polar bears were suffering because of global warming.
So even if we implemented all these economy-crushing, debt and price-raising ideas, we can only change the amount of CO2 by 0.1%. The condition of CO2 on the planet will essentially remain unchanged while we wreck economies. Why do you want to do all of this green economy stuff when it will not change the one thing you want to change?
Environmentalists say we should to save the Earth.
Could there be another reason? Could this new energy economy help big business types like Al Gore to make billions while you and I will pay twice as much for electricity, not to mention gas, propane, oil, and any product delivered in a truck, train, boat or aircraft powered by big oil? If greenhouse gas emission is really the question, then nuclear power is the answer.
Nuclear is scary. We don't have a way to handle the waste.
France and the U.S. Navy have figured it out. Apparently, it is only our president who isn't aware of any way to handle the waste.
He just wants to make sure we are safe.
But we already have safe ways to deal with it. Do you think he hasn't heard about those ways? Or could it be that he just wants to push a political agenda for his cronies and special interests?
Only the right has special interests.
If Dick Cheney was saying that by 2035 we should be 80% dependent on a particular energy product, wouldn't you be a bit suspicious?
Obama is good. He is doing this for our good. Dick Cheney is bad.
Well, Case closed.